Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 31st, 2023 meeting, a public meeting of the Board of Education. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the Campbell Board of Education is meeting this evening on the traditional territories of the Lakota people. Please note that there is a short production delay between the live event that you are viewing and the meeting participants, and that the question and answer function is open for questions on agenda items throughout this virtual meeting. A final call for questions will be made after the last agenda item, and the questions will be addressed before the end of the session. So good evening, everyone. I'd like to start this evening by calling our meeting to order and on to the superintendent's remarks. Unfortunately, Superintendent Morrow is ill this evening, so we'll turn that over to Associate Superintendent Sismic.
Superintendent Morrow sends his regrets, but it's a good time to remind everyone that if you're not feeling well and think you may be contagious, whether you're a student, staff member, or parent, please stay home. We're still in COVID, and there are still lots of, we've got the flu going around and such. So it's a good reminder. Thank you, Superintendent Morrow, for reminding us through his own absence. On January 19th, we had the pleasure as a district to host districts from Nanaimo North and Powell River as part of a regional equity scan session. It was made up of educational teams and community teams, and we had the ability to share and learn as part of our commitment to reconciliation and equity of outcomes. And thank you to Deborah Martell and our Indigenous Education Department for facilitating that. It was a great day. Kindergarten registration began this week, and as part of that, we're also opening applications for our childcare at our 6 sites. I'm pleased to say that we are nearing the tendering stage. Our drawings and engineering has been done. We have a district calendar committee that is getting together to look at developing a calendar for the next 3 years. We're beginning enrollment projections for next year, so if families know that they'll be moving out of the district or moving schools, or if they know people are moving in, please share that with your school administration. The more accurate our numbers are in the spring, the better we can plan for the fall. Elementary and middle school report cards will be going out in February. At the elementary level, we're nearing 100 days, so that's an important part of the early and primary programs where kids have an opportunity to showcase their understanding of numbers and do presentations and displays. And our secondary schools will be transitioning to new terms.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Sismic.
I just learned 100 days on the 100th day of school.
But that is a highly
Know that.
contested issue. Is it really 100 days? And is 100 days from September? Does it include Pro D days?
And snow days.
And snow days.
Wow, who knew? So moving on to agenda item 3, the approval of the minutes of the meeting of January 10th, 2023. We have a mover, Trustee Hagan, seconded by Trustee Harper. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? So moved. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. That the minutes of the meeting of January 10th, 2023 are hereby approved as circulated. So moved by Trustee Gillis and seconded by Trustee Briggs. Any discussion? All those in favor? Awesome. So are there any additions or alterations to the agenda? I would like to add under 12A, just a quick update on the board governance Pro D of January 14th. Are there any further additions or alterations to the agenda?
Is there a need to discuss the progress of the strategic plan process of development?
Sure, I'm happy to put that on. Okay. Let's put that under. And are you comfortable, Ms. Patrick, speaking to that? Okay, so let's put that under educational submissions, under 11B, and the progress of the strategic plan. Excellent. Are there any other additions or alterations to the agenda? Seeing none, the motion reads that the agenda is hereby approved as amended. May I have a mover? Trustee Hagan, seconded by Trustee Glanish. All those in favor? So moved. So on to Vice Chair Gillis regarding the report of board decisions from the January 31st confidential.
Well, we've had a robust meeting thus far and we'll return to conclude that, and we'll only had matters pertaining to plans and personnel, so big to report at this time.
Thank you, Trustee Gillis. Seeing that there is no correspondence, active correspondence, or public submissions, public or agenda submissions, we're on to educational submissions, and 11A is the Carihi grade 9 cohort report. And I'm going to invite Morgan up to introduce our team of educators to discuss this.
So pleased that Carihi grade 9 cohort team is here. And, you know, after a long day of teaching, they've come here on their time to present this. They're proud of the work that they've done, and I'll let them speak to how it came to be. But with us tonight, we really appreciate that you've all come here to tell us about it. We know it's been a long day for you, so we appreciate it. So we've got Leah Sampson, Scott McKenzie, Matt Moore, Allison Peak, Stephanie Nickel, Alana Jorgensen, and Jessica McConnell. So welcome to come on up and tell us all about it. Thank you.
And we thought it was the reduced price for the school board tickets.
Okay, I might give that, when I give that to you. Yeah. Okay, so I think that would be great. So I'm Leah Sampson.
Matt, I'm Matt Moore.
Jessica McConnell.
Allison Peak.
Scott McKenzie.
Alana Jorgensen.
Stephanie Nickel. And there's a few that are missing tonight, but we're part of the grade 9 cohort team at Carihi. And this started, the very beginnings was 2 years ago, but it was really in fruition last year, full board. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do. And yeah, and Allison is just going to, should I have a little handout? You don't need to follow it. It's not, we're not giving you school. It's just a kind of a glimpse of what we're going to be chatting about today. So the grade 9 cohorts at Carihi are a powerful way to facilitate our district strategic goals. So the schedule of them, just so you understand the makeup, is that at Carihi we have 4 quarters in our year. Each quarter has 2 classes for 10 weeks. And for grade 9s, they get 1 academic course, so like 1/2 of their day. So math, socials, English, or science for 1 of those half days each quarter. And then their quarter gets swapped. So quarter 1, they'll have their academic in the morning. Quarter 2, it's the afternoon. Quarter 3, morning, so that everybody gets a rotation for grade 9s in the afternoon. And teachers work and plan collaboratively. So we're an academic team. So for example, Scott is my partner. So he does the math, science, and I do the socials and the English. And we decide when the learning is done for that group, and we switch about every 5 weeks, most of us, but there is flexibility with what works for what teaching team. And then every week, regardless, we always switch 1 day in the week to touch base with our other class. So they're always touching base in literacy or numeracy all the time. This is the visual. That's sometimes hard to picture. And then it's also in your handout. So yeah, so they'll have their elective in their empty one, and then we just swap. And so Scott and I have them, or their team teachers have them every half day. So the foundation of the cohort system is really based on the 3 C's. Which is connection, community, and collaboration. So these three objectives are the driving force behind the grade 9 cohort system. And it is why the cohort system is the most powerful way to deliver the district strategic goals, literacy, numeracy, and well-being. And we'll talk a little bit about the details on well-being. So we have offered like mental health literacy within our cohort systems. We're gonna have substance use presentations within the cohort system and some discussion on social media use. And the bottom line is that there was data collected from last year. And grade 9 students are far more successful in a cohort system than not. So the failure rates were at an all-time low last year, and we see this success from all learners, but the data shows that it is particularly helpful for our Indigenous learners. So the reflections from us, so this is where we kind of talk about our experience. So planning with the cohorts in mind. So last year's administration was really purposeful and intentional when creating a timetable and ensured that the cohorts were the #1 priority. So before anything else, they put the team sort of together. They made sure that our preps were aligned. They, ensured that morning and afternoon was spread out. So half the grade 9s do morning and afternoon and they swap. And it makes all the difference with that planning. Yeah, so these are some of the reflective remarks that we've heard from our teachers, which is, I like that I can integrate literacy skills within socials or science content. So that's really nice, especially if you're talking and working with your partner about what literacy strategies are working with this group of learners. Scott can incorporate that into science. And so it's a really seamless transition. Yeah, do you want to do the next one?
Sure. Another one is I really like the collaborative atmosphere of the cohorts. I meet with my partner teacher during our prep almost every day and share insights about our learners. I also really like that the entire grade 9 cohort team meets frequently to share ideas and enhance learning opportunities. I know for a fact that my teaching partner, who was unable to come tonight, unfortunately, but we've had our preps together this rotation and we meet all the time and it's awesome because we do planning. We just touch base, even if it's only for 20 minutes, just talking about a kid, different strategies that we're using, and it really creates a supportive environment. And also us as a group frequently meet, probably once a month, every 6 weeks, and just talk and share what's working for us.
God, I'm gonna make you.
Yeah.
I really like that our math and science concepts are reviewed all year long. And students can see the connections between two subject areas. So for example, in my room, we grow plants. We collect the data of the plants, and then we graph the data, and we can incorporate that in our algebraic expressions.
Okay, so the pros of the cohort system. So one thing that we've really noticed are the strong relationships. So just for the students, for themselves, being the same kids all year, and the adults that work with them. So teacher, student, EA, the students, been really powerful. And another great pro is the gift of time, because we know that we have these kids all year so that we can loop back and practice those skills that we know that they need to be successful. So knowing that we just don't have them for 10 weeks or 4 months, it's like every day we're going to be together, right? So we have them all year and that's wonderful. And they're able to show their learning throughout the entire year. So it's a flexible schedule for both the students and the teachers. And we've also noticed better individualized support for our students. So LST and EAs are an integral member of our classroom community. So that's great. We have a really close relationship with our LST department. They're often in our rooms, helping out, really supportive. And what we found is it builds a community of learners and empowers students to take ownership over their learning, which is a lot of the feedback that we've been getting from our grade 10 teachers.
I think we're also seeing grade 9s. Maybe they're a little more fragile coming into high school after the pandemic. It's nice just having that consistency with fewer adults every day, and just that sense of community growing and that sense of trust.
For French immersion, because there's that core subject that's carrying through the entire year, they're getting that intensive French language instruction all the way through the year, whereas previously, maybe they had a really heavy one semester, and then the next semester they only had one course or even no courses. It's better. I've seen a huge improvement in their skills, just even over the first semester time.
Let's see. The cons, there aren't that many, okay? Just give us a minute to think about them. Yes, so sometimes not all students within a class are best suited to learn together over a period of time. Even though there's much thought that goes into those classes from Phoenix. Like Phoenix does an awesome job of looking at the students that are in grade 8, meeting with the counselors, classroom teachers, compiling those lists. But, you know, if there are problems that arise, we have a solution for that too. So every 10 weeks, it's possible for students to be moved to the other classroom if everyone deems this move is a positive one for learning. Which I think is great. So we're sort of at the halfway mark, and I know that a few of us cohort teachers are sort of shuffling some of the kids around because it's better to meet their learning needs. And so it's a real positive. So if there are conflicts, it's like, okay, let's move this kid here. This would be better for their learning. So addressing the literacy and numeracy crisis. So since the pandemic, teachers have noticed a significant drop in numeracy levels. So the cohort system has truly provided students the time and the environment to address these needs. So this September, we got our reading assessments from Phoenix. They had done that, was it the Dibbles?
Yeah.
And they were low. And so we knew that we were gonna be meeting some complex students that couldn't read very well. So we did our own reading assessments, and the data from Phoenix proved to be correct. So we had quite a few students who were reading below grade level, some who couldn't read at all. So we panicked because we're high school teachers and we're like, why do we have to teach these kids how to read? But that was great because we are a team. We met right away. Like we met right away. We figured out what are the best solutions. What are the interventions that we can do, right? Meeting with our teacher partners, with our literacy team. We reached out to Christine Fraser, our elementary literacy coordinator, who was a great resource. We started a book club. So it's been great. It's been great having that support network built in, dealing with the challenges of our learners.
And student support. So the differentiation in student support has never been more aligned or effective. So LST and educational assistants are true partners in our classrooms and can offer all levels of support within and outside of the classroom when needed. So like I personally have never had an experience where we meet with like our LST teacher, like 2 or 3 times a week, constantly checking in. I can like do a quick Teams message down and say, is there any way you can pop in for 15, 20 minutes during this time that I know that some of my learners are going to need extra support. And so like there's times when, and the classrooms are purposely small. I did forget to mention that at the beginning. So they did try to keep them under 25. And those that arrive, I mean, my average is about 18 that arrive, that attend regularly. So we'll have like 3 adults in a room doing, and so it's just so powerful. So it's been, even though they came in and they needed lots of support, I do feel like we are offering it to them. There's also a really great benefit of the cohorts is that a common message can be given across the cohort. So grade 9 students at Carihi High receive a collaborative and consistent message around wellness. So for example, we did mental health literacy this year, where all grade 9 cohorts got all the same 6 lessons, and how they wanted to deliver that in each cohort was up to them, but it was the same set of lessons. So they all got this same message. So all our 9s are going to move through our school with that baseline of mental health literacy. And then the substance abuse will be as well presented to them. It builds a positive Carihi High culture. And I mean, the possibilities are endless here. And we hope each year to continue to use the benefits of this system to better meet whatever needs come our way with each group.
I can add about the mental health literacy. It's interesting that the students, you hear them talking about it in the hallway because they're aware that those lessons, everyone is doing them.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, did you guys have that thing today? Oh yeah, ours is tomorrow. And they're like, they are looking forward to it and they're excited about the fact that they all have this common experience and it's been really great.
Oh, what grade 10 teachers are saying. So, the grade 10 students who are in the cohort system just seem so much more grounded and confident in their learning. So that's what one of our math teachers has told us. That's taught a lot of grade 10s this year. The grade 10 students this year are not afraid to take risks in their learning, ask questions, or work through struggle. So they've noticed our grade 10 teachers have just come back a bunch and talked about what they're really seeing in the grade 9s who've gone through the cohort system. And these grade 10s are simply more resilient. So this is the feedback that we've been getting.
Yeah, so to round it up, the grade 9 cohort system is incredibly impactful for student achievement and is a powerful way to deliver our district's strategic goals in literacy, numeracy, and well-being. And we just, respectfully remind you that this system is vitally important to Carihi High, and we kindly ask that for now and in the future, that the cohort system is considered a priority in our district. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Question? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, how do you establish those learners who will participate in the cohort model?
Every grade 9.
Every grade 9.
Every
Carihi
grade
High,
9
yeah.
at Carihi High. Oh,
Every grade 9.
wonderful. Thank
A
you.
little bit modified with it, like I have it for both math and science and a different teacher has this different, so, but they haven't been able to align the time to work for at the same time.
Yeah.
But hopefully we're doing that because it's.
We're trying, yeah, because French immersion, they have to take their socials in French. So you can't, I'm not that talented, I can't do languages and.
Yeah.
Much. So they need a few more different options, so they're working on it, but they have, a chunk. I mean, Jess, don't you have, you teach all of them, don't you?
Yeah.
All 4, yes.
Because there's 3 classes in grade 9 this year, in French immersion. 2 of them have 2 teachers that they just swap between the 2 of them. And then I have the 3rd group, which has been a gift. It's been a real gift. Being able to compare their writing from September to now, and then knowing that I'm going to have them again for science next semester in math, I'll be able to see that progression. And, there's a certain surprise when students look at their work and they go, wow, I really learned something. Yeah, we did. It's the value of having those portfolios being built over time is really important. The other piece is because of the scheduling of it with the 2 at a time, instead of having 4 courses at a time, it has the advantages of a block schedule, meaning one course, like one class period, is 2.5 hours long, which means that for science, for example, there is time to introduce a concept, do a lab related to that concept, debrief the lab, write up the final report from that, and also something else related to it. It's a long, in-depth period of time. Same thing with math. It's enough time to do a similar concept from more than one angle. And a lot of students get a lot out of that because once they've seen that same concept repeated in a couple of different ways, it clicks. And it's, oh, I get it now. I can move on the next day or 2 days later onto the next thing. Whereas previously it would have been, lesson and there's not time to process, and then you have to go home and practice on your own, and that looping isn't happening necessarily. The shorter class period.
I just want to commend you on this. I think it's amazing. And I don't know why it doesn't go grade 8 and 9. Because really it's a middle school concept, and it's the mentoring, that close contact with kids, the opportunity to build community and connections and all that kind of stuff, which makes it so much easier to connect with children, especially the ones who are struggling or on the fringes. Yeah. I'm also kind of curious. You said something about your literacy rates went down a little bit, and I'm wondering, what kind of, you said Dibbles, they do that in middle school. I'm wondering what kind of assessment tools are you using for that, and what kinds of interventions do you think might be most helpful for those children? Because they're not elementary anymore, but they sometimes need that kind of a very direct intervention to be able to move forward.
Yeah, so I mean, in my group, I can speak for myself, but I think many similar things are happening in other cohorts is, that's where our LST, teacher really helps. And so we sit down and for us, it's kind of almost in like, kids are almost in like, levels of 3, like overall, where it's like, we have like, I have non-readers. I've actually like 3. And so their intervention is really targeted. And so we work it out that they work intensively with her, like 4 times a week during our reading time. Whereas my kind of middle, like we're not quite at grade level yet for literacy. However, they need some help. So that's where I use either myself during our reading time or my EA, and we do a shared reading. So where they're sharing their reading in a reading group. And then I still can reach those ones that are ready to be independent and have their time to read. And there's just thankful for that, and we can grow with them as well. So that's one strategy we've used for those literacy goals.
Trustee Higgin, and what about Trustee Gillis?
Well, I'm really proud of you. I graduated from Carihi High. So, and all 3 of my kids graduated from Carihi High. And I don't know about myself, but my kids are very successful. But right from the beginning, we had a principal called John Young, who hired, and very controversial. And but the whole school, he was so different in his attitude that he hired some of the best teachers from across the province, and they stayed. But it was the culture that actually ended up staying, of willing to take risks, of challenging kids to be their best. And I'm really proud of Carihi High as a school, and I'm proud of you folks for just being innovative and trying your best in new ways, because the way kids are today is changing. It's vastly different. I don't know if you know this, but I ran a jail for 30 years, and the last 5 years were the worst.
You recognize it?
Just the fingerprints. But it was all with young offenders, and I noticed how more complicated they all became. And I think the job of teachers today needs to change, needs to be innovative, to see the change that we need in kids and still provide that great education and that attitude that comes out of Carihi High of respect and caring and learning. And you're doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate this, and I love your connection, collaboration, community. Yes, we've been talking about community, and not only about around students, but around staff. I think that's so important. So I think we've got enough time I'd just love to hear your name again and how long you've taught in the school district, if we can start with Steph. Yeah.
I started teaching, Stephanie Nickel, I started teaching in the district in 2014. Yeah.
I'm Alana Jorgensen. I started at Phoenix in 2005.
Scott McKenzie, I started at Southgate in 2004. I've been at Carihi High since 2000.
I'm Leah Sampson. I actually started at Southgate, in 2005, and then taught for 2 years, and then moved to Vancouver, worked in Surrey for 8 years, and then came back. This is my 6th year back here at the district.
I'm Allison Peak, and I started, I think it was 2006 at Timberline, and so I've been at Carihi High since since about 2000. So yeah, 10 years now.
Hi, I've been at the district since 2018. I started at Southgate, like a lot of people did a little stint in middle school. Then I moved to Carihi High after that.
Yeah.
And I'm Matt Moore, and I've been a teacher since 2006, but I moved here to Campbell River and started in the district in 2018. And I've been really lucky to just work at Carihi High the whole time. So I moved here.
Well, we're very lucky to have all of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, well, I do have one question, and after that lovely question by Trustee Gillis, I just, bit of a logistics question. So we are currently on the quarter system at Cary High, and Timberline is running on the semester system. Can you describe to me how you think a cohort model might work in a semester system, or some kind of mechanism for Timberline to try on a cohort model with the grade 9s that are attending that school as well? Do you have any suggestions or ideas?
Powers it be that are
Yeah.
way better at this stuff than me.
Yeah.
My visual is not my forte. I do know that it can operate in a semester system. I do know that there are some drawbacks, because of like the block schedule, like, and having 4. When we were discussing it, just, just floating it around, in our grade 9 cohort teacher meeting, we were saying, things like, well, but then they're still managing, 2 other classes and like our academics. So it is adding another class, right? So because they'd still be changing for 2 classes in the afternoon, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world for grade 9s, depending if it was planned okay. And then what else was the?
I think one implication might be in scheduling of options, that you would end up, right now in our options, we have 9 to 12. Right,
Yeah.
and it's pretty evenly split. So like in my entrepreneurship class, I will have roughly a quarter in each grade level, which means I have a group of leaders who aren't necessarily the grade 12s, but right. So there's a different spread of age there. Whereas if we did semestered, we might end up with more of the 9s and 10s clumped together in their options, and then 11s, 12s in their own options.
Right.
Just that's how it would play out in the schedule, I believe.
When I started at Phoenix, I was taught grade 9 at Phoenix in quasi cohorted model. Once I taught them English, I taught them math and science, and my partner teacher taught me English and socials. And definitely were spread a little bit thinner because they had a portion of their linear system, but we definitely had that collaboration piece. We were able to swap kids and support them and support each other through parent meetings and do some interdisciplinary and cross-curricular learning as well, doing it.
Thank you. And just as a quick follow-up, I just want to really commend you as teachers for building positive connections with grade 9s. We were all grade 9s at one point, and it was a hard transition moving into high school. And data suggests that we're losing a lot of our students at the grade 10 level. So I'm genuinely hopeful that through this cohort model and increasing the literacy outcomes of some of our grade 9 students, we're going to have a chance to keep them hooked in and improve our graduation rates across the district.
Did you actually have to have relationships over time? Yeah, the time we get to spend with them, and I'm lucky because I also feel can.
Yeah.
So I. Having this connection with families ongoing, and with my kids, I get the siblings of families, and so we have those ongoing relationships with the persons. No matter how difficult or the learning needs of a child are, the better you know them, the easier it is to meet those needs.
And for parents as well, having 2 academic contact points instead of. So I have, the parents that I communicate with and ongoing communication, I'm able to send updates on Fridays that parents know to expect them, and they know to continue to expect them throughout the rest of the year. And so that makes their lives easier as well. They don't have to wonder what's happening, they know who to contact next and who is the emotional support.
Actually, one more question. It sounds like the students in your cohort are very well supported. Hoping I'm not opening the can of worms, but how well supported are you in terms of resources and that sort of thing in order to do the kind of job that you want to do with these students?
I can. French immersion is its own little thing.
Right.
But within our group of 3 teachers who were doing the French immersion, like darts, like 9, we were able to order resources for 1 class set. And then between the 3 of us, because of our scheduling and knowing that we were all using that same resource, we planned that we weren't in conflict and that we were able to save a lot of money that way.
Okay. Where I find it difficult is that with my math and science kids, I have the Francophone school district kids in my classroom as well, and balancing the needs of those districts in mind. So they may have a couple and I may have a couple and neither is enough for an EA, but their resources come from their funding and our resources come from our funding. And their timetable isn't even the same as ours. And so it's, I rarely get on the floor support in my classroom. Well, like digitally, it's very good. And having the literacy within our school and getting strategies from our LST team is fantastic. Actually having on the floor support with growing needs is getting a little bit challenging.
I think from my perspective too, the most important support that we've gotten with this program is small.
Yeah.
Where's the opportunity to
Yeah.
really build relationships?
And I would imagine parents are supportive.
Well, you know your parents, like, so, I mean, when, when you have, I mean, if it was an ordinary 10-week, I have kids in English 9 in September for 10 weeks, like, I can tell you right now, I'll bet you less than 25% of my class would have passed.
Yeah.
Whereas that's gonna be very different by the end of the year. Yeah, and so they're not slipping through the cracks. They can't, right? There's a team that has them.
Yeah.
The one thing though, I will do this, was in September when we freaked out about literacy, which was scary, because a lot of us who had taught high school didn't have any early literacy training, right? It just wasn't in our repertoire. So not having our adolescent literacy support person, right? 'Cause that was scared.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Yeah.
So I mean, Christine Fraser's been amazing, with that supportive, but she's very busy too, right?
Yeah.
Chairperson, before you go, I was remiss in not introducing Sean McLaughlin, the principal, that really should have introduced. I was missing the mark on that. But thanking Sean for coming out tonight as well, and give him an opportunity if he wanted to add anything. I know it's his first year at Carihi High, and Louise Panzera and Rachel Nelson were integral to the work that you guys were doing last year, and we know that there was huge support from the admin there as well. But just making sure that Sean has a moment on the floor, if it's okay.
Yes, I would just echo what you were just saying, that Louise and Rachel were really big supporters of making sure that the cohort model continued into this year. And so for Dennis and I just to come in and it already being in place and having such a strong group of educators already in place, it's been a wonderful model and been really nice to watch and to be a part of.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out on a Tuesday night when you could be at home.
Good job, everybody.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
And just a different way of doing things.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
So on to 11B, back to the agenda, on to the 11B, the progress of the strategic plan and information gathering. I'll invite our communication manager, Jennifer Patrick, up to share some of the data. On the fly, unexpected.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I've been working very closely with Superintendent Morrow on the consultation process to start to gather information to help inform the board as you're looking to renew the next strategic plan. So we did an online survey in December, ended just before the winter break, and we had 896 survey respondents to that survey. The breakdown was 566 parents, 235 staff, 77 community members, and 18 students. And we've just recently shared that feedback with all of the trustees for your review and consideration. We are now in the process of doing student consultation sessions because we had such a low response rate from students for our online survey. We have been going out to the schools and meeting individually with classes. And so to date, we have visited a grade 6-7 class, actually Leah Sampson's class that was just here presenting, and a grade 8 class at Phoenix. We've also met with grade 9, 10, and 12 students at Carihi High and Timberline. And we will be doing a session tomorrow at Southgate Middle School. Later this month, we'll be looking to do another session at Carihi High with the Indigenous Connections class with Bobby Smith. And so then we will be compiling all of that feedback and sharing that as well with the board, probably towards the end of the month. And then the next stages in terms of our consultation process, we'll be looking to engage local First Nations communities, looking to arrange hopefully sessions within their community that we can go to and have conversations with parents, as well as we met with the student leadership group as well. So that's basically it. Any questions?
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
So on to 12A, which is the board governance pro D, and this is just an information sharing that the board did have an opportunity on January 14th to do a day-long session with Leroy Sloan around board governance and best practice. I felt it was a very useful conversation. It helped to guide us as a governance team in next steps to strengthen us as our role as governors. So just a quick update to the public that learning was undertook. And on to 14A, which is the finance warrant and Secretary Treasurer Patrick.
Just our December 2022 finance warrant is ready for the board to approve. So moved.
Okay. And seconded by Trustee Gillis. The motion would read that the finance warrant of December 31st, 2022 be approved as circulated, and moved by Trustee Hagan, seconded by Trustee Gillis. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? So moved. And on to 14B. Secretary Treasurer Patrick.
Yes, so I would like to present the halfway quarterly report for the year. So
That's too cool.
well, it actually isn't. So the interesting thing with the document that we have, this is the December quarterly report. And it depends if you're going on the school months, which is 4 tenths, or the calendar year, which is half a year. So when looking up at the budget, first thing I'll point out is the budget, the revenues pretty much match the expenses. There's about $50,000 difference, and that's because we were going to drop that from the international program. But when you go down to the budgeted year to date, it's supposed to reflect how far we are in of the year. So for revenues, it's actually about closer to the school year. Whereas when you look at the investment income, the budget year to date is actually half a year. And so this document is a really good document to share with the trustees and to kind of identify where there are some concerns. We don't want surprises when it comes to our finances. We want to know where things are headed, and if there are any concerns, address them pretty early. So going down, looking at the year to date and the actual to date, the Ministry of Ed operating grants are fairly online. I will point out right here, as we kind of get a little bit further in, we are getting into a bit of a complicated funding situation where we don't have the settlement grant adjustments from the collective agreements that have recently been settled, the QP collective agreement, the teachers collective agreement, or exempt funding. So that's not reflected in the funding yet. Heading down is we're going to look at the Ministry of Ed other grants. There's a 31% difference. With that, those Ministry of Ed other grants are actually sort of the one-time grants that we get throughout the year. So we don't generally do a the budget will be a 4 tenths, but you'll get those grants kind of as you receive them. So at this point, we have received more grants than what 50% would reflect. Continuing down, the SD 93, those are our francophone students. Of course, we receive received more students than what we had budgeted. That year-to-date is based on the preliminary. The actual year-to-date is based on what we actually have. So when we present a final budget to you at the next board meeting, we will adjust that, we'll adjust the budget up and that'll better match. Of course, the big one on there, the 2,000% over budget, has to do with miscellaneous revenue. And the positive in that overage is we received a Pacific Sport grant, which is has added teacher time to provide service to students. So we applied for the grant, we got it. It's not a administrative grant, so we plunked it in with the miscellaneous revenue. So again, on our budget, we will adjust that up. When we prepared the budget, we didn't know that we would adjust that, but we did. And then the last nice surprise down there for the school district at least is the investment income is 300% more than what it typically should be. And that's because interest rates have gone up dramatically. So we will get an opportunity to adjust the budget up. Of course, heading into next year, we'll probably lower it down a little bit from what we received this year, but we are getting the benefit of higher interest rates. So looking at the bottom line, 25 million was what we expected. 25.7 is where we are today. So we're above where we expected to be. Looking at the expenses, so now we're only 1% over the salaries, wages, and benefits. But what you're starting to see in there is the teacher wage increases were part of this, not QPs, not exempt staff yet. So again, because the preliminary budget didn't have those increases in, but the actual expenses have them in, you're going to start to see those expenses exceed that budgeted year to date. As we get to the final budget, we'll have to address the funding component to those wages. And again, the ministry won't commit to us to have those grants in place for the final. So again, by the time we present it, we'll have made the decision on how to present it and show it. But I can assure you that at the end of the year, we will have those grants for all three working groups. So when you look at the year to date to the actual, we are over the services, supplies, and contracts. That's where most of that difference comes from. And when you talk about the half a year, 10 months versus 4 months, a lot of the services and supplies get spent in summer. So it really gets front loaded with the expenses. It is normal for us to be over at this time of year. Where we really want to make sure is that we don't exceed that $6.8 million for the full year. So, you know, when you kind of look at that at this point, by the end of the year, we are expecting a balanced budget, but at this point, our expenses are exceeding the revenues by about $1.7 million. We do expect that gap to close. And then get into a few more details here. And this is just an opportunity to point out that the teacher line, $630,000 over what the budgeted year to date. About 400,000 of that is directly related to that wage settlement that changed. The other portion is related to that Pacific Sport grant that we got, but we haven't been able to adjust the budget for. Again, looking at supplies being ordered earlier in the year for the summer is why the supplies budget is over. Coming down, professional staff under district administration. So we have had some turnover, well, not some turnover. We've had some leaves that we've had to cover. So we've actually had a little bit of double up with the transition process. So That costs are reflected there, but we haven't adjusted the budget for that yet. And that's the same with operations and maintenance professional staff. So as we've had the transition through people, when and where we were able to kind of do an effective transition with more than one person there, we have done that. Last thing on here that I'll point out is the supplies, transportation, of course, fuel has gone up from the point that we prepared this in the preliminary. So we are over budget, and we will be able to adjust that. So, yeah, at this point, I think we'll get more clarity as we get to the final budget that'll get presented at the next budget meeting. There's no major concerns, other than making sure that we receive full funding for our labor settlement packages. Again, I don't know that we'll have that certainty for that final budget, but here's the quarterly report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Secretary for your contract.
Yes, possible balance now. So.
Tanker truck down.
Belling that.
Billing now, yeah.
That's 60 Canadian. Sure, you're not getting any rebates.
So, moving on to 15, which are committee reports, and we'd like to start with the calendar consultation committee that met on January 12th. Trustee Hagan.
Yes, it was a very good meeting. There was lots of input from, I think, just about every member around the table, representing all the various groups from within the district. And so it was interesting because everyone had a point of view, but I think they all kept kids in the classroom first. And we're still waiting for input from the Pro-D committee. And as well, we're waiting for some more consultation, and the dates of those Natalie has. But yeah, it really was quite nice because someone else would say, no, what about this time? And what about Halloween? And, you know, I mean, there were all the, to have the people there on hand, and especially a parent group representative, you know, oh no, parents won't like that. And it's just nice to hear, to get that immediate feedback from representative groups. And it was a very interesting and very good meeting. And again, it's what's going to shape the future, and what the future looks like, we're not even sure, other than we want to give parents stability for at least 3 years, plan for the next 3 years, but we have to start looking at all kinds of things. And I don't want to throw, you know, it out into the world of some of the possibilities, but you can imagine there's just every possibility of the way the schools can conduct themselves. I know over on one of our islands, I'm sorry, Search Narrows, they've got a different schools system right now that fits their community. And I think that's what we need to look at for the future, especially with retention. Well, we saw today, teachers are working differently through their class years. And I think it's a very interesting, the future will be different than what it is now, but hopefully we keep what's best in mind. So.
Thank you very much. Trustee Hagan.
Natalie, did you want to announce any future dates or around what time frame this has to be?
It will go to the board for approval, the draft at that February 28th meeting, and then after that, it will go up to the public
Okay.
for review.
And Trustee McMahon, you had a question or comment?
I just had a comment because Associate Superintendent Sis McKenna sit at the DPAC table. And so it was interesting to hear their perceptions of that meeting, having had a couple of representatives there, I guess. They said they had no idea how complicated it was. They said they thought somebody just threw down a calendar and started marking it off. And they said, oh my gosh, I don't know how you manage with all of the different elements that have to go into considering the calendar. So I think that in itself was a positive.
Thank you, Trustee McMahon. So moving on to 15B, which is the committee report on the on the Student Leadership Committee on January 19th. Trustee Briggs.
We had a really nice discussion surrounding the next strategic plan, what students would consider changing, whether their learning is relevant, incorporating more solutions-focused climate discussions, and student voice leadership opportunities for younger students. We asked for feedback on what they thought some of the parent feedback meant, kind of through a different lens. It was interesting. Yeah, we touched on mental health supports and discussed SOGI being overly prominent in the public eye, as they've said it's not really a focus for them as compared to, say, math and biology. Feedback for Daryl's calendar committee was that to start later, as some are too busy for extracurricular activities, and to look at longer days with a 3-day weekend.
Oh, wow. That's interesting feedback.
Some of those kids, the amount of extracurricular activities that they take on, being if they were students, we didn't have that opportunity growing up, so it blows my mind the level of activities that they're involved in. Like one student told us what time she goes to bed at, and then what time she gets up to go to school because she's doing homework so late into the night. It's up with everything. Interesting.
Did you praise her for doing her homework?
Thank you, Trustee Briggs. On to 15C, which is the CRDTA, Campbell River District Teachers Association and Board Liaison meeting on January 23rd.
Yeah, well, it was a great opportunity to meet with CRDTA President Deborah, Representatives Teresa Foy and Danica Farrow, along with Superintendent Morrow and Chair Eddie and myself. I understand that there is potential to have 4 representatives, each at the table. It was the first meeting of the year, and I gather it's been kind of put on hold as many things due to COVID. So topics varied, but all, I would say, if there was a specific theme, it's certainly to a deeper understanding of how our district, School District 72 and CRDTA, can work closely together to anticipate, and I would say clear some of the pathways for deeper understanding and at times resolution of potential challenges that we see emerging. And there was a recognition that as we see populations and needs shift, we may wish to explore other models of delivering services that support both staff and students, that we are entering into a really difficult time. It's not really, no one's saying post-COVID, but we're seeing some imprints of what we've just been through. And we were all agreed that efficient, effective communication is fundamental to understanding and sharing the culture of our school district. Good balance of perspective. It was great to have people who could speak with an elementary, a middle, and a secondary voice. And we know that there are some committees currently at work to review some of the bigger topics, such as reporting and assessment and models of instructional delivery and support that can hopefully for more students and staff. And yeah, I just say that I'm confident the conversations such as we had will help shape some of our strategic plan, which, or the formation of our strategic plan, which of course will be the lifeline of what we all do together in our district. And looking forward to future meetings.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gillis. So on to 15D, the BCPC AGM held January 26th and 27th. I am the representation on behalf of School District 72 at BCPC. BCPC stands for the BC Public School Employers Association. This was their formal business meeting, so it was the AGM where we vote on budgets and housekeeping and all of those kind of pieces as part of the association. Some interesting takeaways was the extreme challenge with recruitment and retention, not just in BC or SC 72 or Northern BC, but across nationally. There was a really interesting comment made that I hold in my head, and it was, for so long, we as a society have told people how hard education is. And we have yet to really celebrate for individuals going to university and moving forward in their career paths, how rewarding the fields can be. And that perhaps the negativity that has surrounded teaching and education and the challenges in education may be impacting some individual choices around whether or not to enter the profession. And that maybe we should be considering more the language that we use to inspire children in our system to pursue education as a career goal. So there are some ministry initiatives around French immersion. There's some federal funding coming through for French immersion teaching recruitment. There are some pilot projects being run in the High North around teacher retainment, and also some innovative accrediting models that are being used to help those individuals that are non-certified teachers to gain certification through teaching and on-the-job training. So all in all, a good meeting and with lots to learn. And yeah, and we just as a reference, BCPC is also financially challenged in their budget. So 2024's AGM will be taken in a virtual format in order to see a savings on their budgetary lines. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, there is no other business on our agenda. Are there any questions from anyone present on agenda items for that? Oh, Deborah.
Like the 11 pages. I really just have one at this time, and that question through the chair to probably Mr. Patrick is, do we have any concerns that the labor adjustment for the contract not coming, or it just hasn't, like that transfer hasn't happened yet? Like, is it dead silence on the ministry's part, or just it's coming, you just can't tell you when?
So through the chair, until you get that amount, you don't know that it exactly matches up. So you could be ahead 50,000, below 50,000. That's actually hopeful to be that close. This year's settlements are really, really complicated because of the provincial changes that were made. So yeah, they're going to have a tough challenge ahead, and we, without seeing it, I feel like we're taking a little bit of a risk when we increase our costs. So, but they know that, and they, for the final budget, they are expecting those types of estimates. And so unfortunately, it won't be till we do our financial statements where we'll know for sure. We should probably get final notification on the grants, maybe like a couple of weeks after we have to file our final budget. So hopefully I see something sooner. If we do, we'll put it in and we'll have a better idea. But the QP grant confirmations are likely going to be May. Exempt, I'm not sure when that might come. So
Thank you.
Any further questions, Deb?
Not at this time.
Are there any from the online world?
No, there are not.
So seeing no further questions, a motion to adjourn, Trustee Hagan, and we're back to confidential.